Welcome to Week 5 of the Northern Shield Academy. I am Zykmoa, a professional Fortnite player for Serenity Esports. This week, we'll be talking about aim and engagements, more specifically, how to judge whether you're taking a smart fight or not. Just to recap on last week, in which we talked about rotations in Fortnite, let's bring back what we learned. We talked about lines of sight, how you want to avoid high traffic areas in general, such as POIs like Retail Row and Lazy Lake. We also talked about understanding what type of area you're playing in, such as the holly hedges, grass, flatland, the water area, or mountainous terrain, and how you should play and position in each type of terrain. If you want to go more in depth on these rotation topics, check out last week's video. Let's move on to this week's topic. We're going to be talking about engagements and fights in competitive Fortnite. But one of the most important things to do before taking the fight is to judge whether it's a smart fight to take or not. You don't want to take any fights when there's a high chance of getting third party, right? Because when you're getting third partied, your fight's not going to be easy. The third party is going to be shooting you and the opponent, and it's just going to be a lot of RNG in it. And you want to have full control over the fight, right? You want it to be a solid 1v1, 2v2, 3v3 instead of any sort of external factors coming in and messing up your fight before it even begins. The next thing you want to consider is your loot. Do you have good enough loot to fight, or are you able to heal back up to full if you are taking damage in the fight? You want to give yourself room for any sort of mistakes you might make in the fight or taking free damage. Having a good amount of shields in your loot is going to be really important for taking a good solid fight, because if you don't have good enough loot and you take a fight and you take damage that you can't heal back up, the fight's over, right? It's going to be really difficult for you to come back from that. The next thing you can really use to judge if you're taking a smart fight is the enemy body language. This is actually super underrated trick, right? So what are they responding with when you approach them? Are they running away? Are they gladly handshaking the fight? What is their response? What is their reaction to you pushing them? If they want to gladly take the fight, usually that means they're very stacked on their loot. If they're running away, sometimes that means they're not in a good position to fight, and that could be good for you. If they don't have a lot of shields, this could be a quick and easy 30-second fight that you could take. You can also judge their skill in the fight. If you run up against a player and you notice that they're really good, you can disengage and try to find someone else. Sometimes this is a good strategy, not because you can't win that fight, but if you're against a similar skill level player, the fight can take very long. It can take up to like 2-3 minutes sometimes, just because you guys are so close in skill level. I noticed that Kanata actually does this tactic a lot, and sometimes he notices that this player is really bad, so that he really forces the fight because it's a really easy opportunity to get kill points. Yet another thing you can gauge, deciding whether a fight is good to take or not, is who has the better positioning. Out of you and the enemy, who has the better positioning? And usually the very easy and simple answer for this is who has height. Whoever has height will most likely be the proactive one in the fight. So if that's you, that's a telling sign that you could start to take this fight. This gives you the power to dictate how the fight goes, right? You can start to take it slow, you can speed it up and surprise them, you can go fast. Height advantage is a big deal in fights. The last and one of the most important things is the awareness check. Can you tell if the enemy notices you? Can you go for an AR entry shot to start the fight off and start pressing them immediately? Sometimes it's good to understand that, hey, if the enemy notices that I'm here and there's no real advantage here, right? So this fight's going to take a long time and this exposes us to third parties. So maybe I should back off and disengage and look for someone else. Maybe someone that doesn't notice me, and I could hit them for maybe 100 damage with my AR. And that's a much easier fight to clean up. As an aspiring player to become the best, it's no secret that you cannot neglect aim training. One of the most important skills in Fortnite, bar none, is aiming. Sometimes someone could totally go for a really fancy build clip play on you, but if you have really good crosshair placement, you can sometimes win the fight without even building once. Aim decides how much damage you do with your shot, and so therefore it's safe to assume that it's a really important skill to master, even in a building game like Fortnite. One of the biggest misconceptions that people have about aiming is that it's all about being accurate at flicks and being insane with your mouse movement. Although that's partly true, in my personal opinion, the biggest thing that impacts whether you land a hard shot or not is how good your crosshair placement is. In the case you don't know what crosshair placement is, it's all about keeping your crosshair on the spot an enemy is most likely to peek you from at all times. Keeping it at head level is an even bigger advantage. Crosshair placement is really key here, makes your job really easy. It makes a necessity to move your mouse even less, and so you can land a hard shot with your pump despite not being an insane aimer. You don't have to be a top 10 aimer to hit hard shots in Fortnite, and that's what decides fights sometimes, right? However, there are times in game when you have little to no crosshair placement for whatever reason, right? Someone surprises you from your blind side in endgame, and this is where your mouse movement and aim is really going to come into play. This will decide whether you die or you end up winning your fight. And so, although it's self-explanatory, practice helps a lot with aim. So make sure you practice consistently. One of the most important things that I learned is that 30 minutes a day on a trainer is much better than doing just a 1 3-hour session on a single day and then skipping the rest of the week. So make sure your training and your practice is super consistent here. So build a routine to train with and stick with it, and you'll notice an improvement. You may not notice it right away or even in the first week, but if you're really focused on keeping it consistent and practicing every day, then you will notice a change in your aim. If you want to find some sort of routine that you can do, like specifically what scenarios you want to do, if you use Kovacs, search up Aimer7 on Google, and he has a guide that he talks about different routines that you can use. It's not really important what routine that you use. I think as long as you stick to a single one and look for improvement and really be consistent with it, I think that's what the most important thing is with aim training. And while we're on the topic, whether you want to use Aim Labs or Kovacs, it's purely preference. Aim Labs is free, so if you're new to aim training, I would at least start with that. There's no drawback to it. But if you want to move on to more advanced scenarios and have a little bit more freedom with what you practice with, try Kovacs, and it costs $10 on Steam. Another way to really practice your aim is to just play the game a lot. Although it sounds simple, this is a very valid way to practice your aim, in my opinion. Some pro players have never aim trained to begin with. They simply play the game a ton, right? There's some examples off the top of my head are Clicks and Joji. In-game experience is good aim practice as well, right? Because nothing could really replace the third-person perspective that Fortnite has, and putting in a lot of hours into the game can give you the comfort that you need to aim well. Regardless, there's many options, and I would personally try all of them and try to see what works for you the best. Just make sure that you're thinking about this in a result-oriented manner, and don't just do what's easiest. Try to do what gives you the results that you want. That's it for me, guys. If you have any questions yourself about the video and any of the topics that I've talked about, even previous weeks, just send me a DM on Discord and I'll be happy to answer any questions you have about the game. As for that, thank you for watching this week's video. I am Zykmoa. You can follow me at Zykmoa TV on Twitter and Zykmoa on all of their social medias. And be sure to check out Northern Shield Academy and their social medias as well. I hope you guys took something away and learned something from this video, and I'll see you guys next week.
Hey, it's Mike here again. What's the most important thing for gamers? Speed, performance, form factor? For me, it's RGB lighting. I don't know about you, but I play better, more agile, and have quicker reactions when I set my RGB mode. Corsair IQ software, spelled ICUE, synchronizes with all your Corsair peripherals with smart lighting and reacts to your gameplay. I would love to see your gaming setup. Tag Seagate Gaming on social media, and I'll be sure to check it out. Well guys, it was a slice this week. I'll see you next week.